Austin, how are you, buddy?
Good, Dad. How are you today?
I'm great. We got a special guest today. Our listeners are going to love this one. But today, our journey takes us inside the heart and mind of number 57, former middle linebacker at the U, Orange Bowl MVP, two-time national champion, third-round draft pick, NFL player, head football coach, one of my former coaches, and one I call friend. This is a story about brotherhood, passion, and one's mission of becoming a better man, husband, and father. My name is Ken Karcher, and I'll be your host. Alongside me is my son, Austin Karcher. Today, we'd like to welcome Coach Bernard Clark as our guest to Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. Welcome, Coach B.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Austin. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about this. The only thing I'd correct, and it's nothing major, I just love doing it. I use Bernard Clark Jr. now because I lost my dad in 2019, Ken, and it's tough. And I hope I don't get choked up later on because I know I'm going to talk about him. But I miss that old man, so I want to make sure I always represent him in every way that I can.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Well, I hope you don't lose it right away because we're going to start at the Clark home and ask you to tell us a little bit about growing up at home and your mom, dad, your sisters.
It was eventful. Probably the best way to say it. I always tell people, and I'm not sure if Austin knows this because he's the oldest, but girls are mean. Girls are mean. I'm the youngest of four. I have three older sisters, and when mom and dad left my older sister in charge, it wasn't nice. It was a situation where I got beat up a lot as a kid when I was younger. The crazy part is when I turned 15 and I grew to be 5'11", and then I grew to be 6'2". It wasn't fair fights. Then it was like my mother's like, you can't hit girls. I'm like, wait, stop. I've been getting beat up my entire life. Now all of a sudden I can't hit girls. So it was eventful. But I tell you what, I learned a lot. I learned some toughness from my sisters, because all my sisters were tough. All my sisters were focused. To this day now, I watch the WNBA and I watch women's athletics because of my sisters, because my older sister, Valerie, and my second, one of my twin sisters, Bridget, both of them played sports, ran track, did basketball, all those things. So I was constantly watching, women's sports when I was growing up as a kid. My second twin sister, she was born with a limp. So she's been, I hate to say handicapped because she's done everything that you can think of, but she's born with a limp. So the situation, she never played sports. My other sisters, I was always around it. And my dad was a local sports hero in the Tampa area. Back then, when my dad was younger, it was obviously segregation. They had black and white schools, and he went to Blake High School, and he was an unbelievable running back, basketball player. And, of course, as I was growing up, I constantly heard the stories of, you'll never be as good as your dad. You're never going to be as good. So all those stories in and out. So it was competitive. It was respectful in my household. It was a situation where, my sisters were, were tough on me. But it was good. It was a good upbringing, great upbringing.
Bernard, when you look back as a young kid, what would you say are some of the things that your parents influenced you or inspired you?
I tell everyone this, Ken, to be totally honest, was one thing my mom and dad, both of them said it to me. But my mom put it in one way, my dad put it another. What it is, my mom always told me, she said, everything and everyone deserves respect. Even a dog deserves respect. So make sure you understand that. And my dad always told me that you're going to be faced with racism. There's nothing you can do about it. But what are you going to do about it? Are you going to cry? Are you going to stop? Are you going to give up? No, you're going to work around it. You're going to keep busting you behind to get where you're supposed to be at. So both of them told me to be respectful in every aspect of my life. It was just a different way of me showing respect and not let my emotions overcome me and let it hurt me in the long run. So that was extremely important for my mom and my dad. But I'll tell you a crazy story that it happened on one night when I was young and I was rebellious and I did something stupid. And it made me understand the importance of my life at that time. I got arrested. I think I've told you the story before, kid. I got arrested for breaking and entering. I was 11 years old. And I never forget, the police officers, they caught me. And my mom showed up. And I remember the cop telling my mom, take him home and show him what a belt feels like. Nah, we didn't make it that far. My mother Austin, my mother went to the woods and she snatched her switch off a branch, and she commenced to whipping my behind. The funny part about it, Austin, though, was on the way to spank me, she passed my cousin who got caught with me for breaking and entering. And his mother was standing there. I guess his mother wasn't working fast enough. So
Yeah.
my mother started spanking him before she even got to me. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if she's doing this to him, I can only imagine what she's about to do to me. Spanking me. And then when I got home and she told me, tell your dad what you did. And I told my father what I did, and he commits to spanking me also. And both of them sat me down at that point and said, you are not a follower. You
Hmm.
can't follow what other people do. You have to be a leader. You can't listen to your cousin. You got to make sure that you lead people when you're not a follower. So at that time, both of them taught me a very valuable lesson as they were spanking my butt. But I understood the lesson at the time that I wasn't to follow people because following people is going to get you in trouble. So
Yeah. Well, and obviously it stayed with you even up until this point. So, I mean, they did a great job teaching, you know?
yeah, that and that belt did a great job teaching.
Coach, tell us a little bit maybe about maybe a memorable conversation you had with your dad growing up, one that sticks out and that maybe sticks with you to today.
Probably the most memorable conversation that I had with my father was Ken mentioned it earlier that in 1988 we played Oklahoma Sooners for the national championship, and before the game, I don't know how my father got down to the sideline. To this day, I have no idea. And I'm standing there and I'm looking on the field. I'm looking at this fanfare. I'm looking at all these people, and then my dad says, "Hey." I look over and I'm like, he's like, "Come here." And my pops tells me, he said, "I've been reading in the paper all week long, and you act like you have something to prove to people. You don't. You don't have anything to
Mm,
prove to anyone." He said, "Your coaches believe in you, your teammates believe in you, and we believe in you as a family. You've already proven that you're good enough to do this, or you wouldn't be starting. So stop trying to prove something and just go out on that field and have fun and enjoy yourself." And that stuck with me more than anything else because my father made me understand it. It's not about the outsiders that need to understand it. It's about the people that you've proven to inside of the organization and inside of your team that makes a difference.
what a beautiful story of just a father, just reminding you of your value, your worth, your, respect you've gained of where you were, not letting the circumstances around you. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I
Uh,
mean, it's crazy, but that's how he always was. My dad was one of those people. He didn't say a whole lot, but when he spoke, when he put it on paper, he ruled with an iron fist. There's no doubt about it.
yeah.
I I think you just showed us why you want to be called Bernard Clark Jr.
Mm,
That's a
yeah.
great testament to your dad and the role your mom played. And I want to dig a little deeper though. You talked about your sisters.
Hmm.
What role did maybe each one of them or the three of them help in your growth to the man you are today, Bernard?
I think it's athletics. I mean, my older sister Valerie, she was an unbelievable athlete. She ran track. She played basketball. I mean, she was a great athlete. So watching her do those things and constantly being dragged to women's sports all the time and watching my sisters compete was outstanding. And my sister that was born with a disability, nothing stopped her. I mean, absolutely nothing
Mm.
stopped her.
Mm,
She had kids. I mean, she did everything you could think of. I mean, she works. I mean, nothing stopped her. So my sisters uh, have a propensity of just really enjoying life and enjoying what they do. I mean, they made some mistakes. Don't get me wrong, but it's a situation where both of them, all three of them, have done outstanding things in their lives and made me kind of say, I want to achieve those things.
yeah.
That's awesome. As a young kid, what role did faith play in your home, Bernard?
To be honest with you, Ken, I think like everyone, I'm not sure. All my friends were dragged to church, so it wasn't a situation where you didn't have a choice of going to church. And now every Sunday, my mother would drag me to church, and she wasn't working. Now my father wasn't big in the church when I was a kid, but every Sunday my mother dragged me to church, and I was there. But I'd be honest with you, when I turned 13, 14 years old, she no longer dragged me. It was now it's
Mm.
your decision. Now
Mm,
it's up to you whether you want to be there or not. And to be honest, for a long time, I continued to still go to church at least once a month because of what she had done. And I think when you talk about raising a child in the way they should go, and they will, grow with it, that's exactly what happened in May of '96 when I gave my life to Christ. It was
mm,
because of what my mother had already instilled in me and what she had always had me grow with. And later on, I think I was a light for my dad. You know, it was a situation where my father kind of saw me. I'll never forget. I think I was in my second year of marriage, which was 2004, and I sat my mom and dad down. And I had a conversation with them. I hope I don't get choked up. And it's one of those situations where I sat my mom and father down. I said, "Look, I want y'all to understand that, you know, no matter what I've been through, what I've gone through, I'm proud to have you as parents.
Mm.
I'm proud to have you as my mom. I'm proud to have you as my dad, no matter what's happened." Because obviously, me and my dad had rifts because we're both alpha males. I
Yeah.
said, "It doesn't matter what happened in the past. I forgive you because God forgave me and He accepted me for who I am." And so that helped our relationship grow in so many ways. So those are the things that they instilled in me. Even though you put those little nuggets along the way, his mom, she didn't know if those nuggets ever going to fit in, but they did. And I think I had a lot to do with my father giving his life to Christ later on, because I'll never when he passed away, I'll never forget my mother calling me, and she was like, "I've never heard your dad pray like that before." This was the day before he died. She said, "I'd never heard him pray like that." She said he was in the bed next to her, almost speaking in tongues. And then all of a sudden, she said, like a calm came over, and he was like, "Okay, I'm fine." And
Mm.
she said, I think a month
Wow.
later, he passed away. So I hope I had something to do with that. I know she had something to do with, you know, taking me to church and helping me understand the word. And my older sister, Valerie, she's also a believer. As a matter of fact, she's been probably about the last 20 years or 30 years, probably more than that. She's been a believer and real strong in her faith and real strong in the church. And so it's been great. It's been an outstanding situation in my family.
Wow, that's awesome. So, describing your childhood, how would you do it? You know, you can use one word or, you know, multiple words, but how would you describe your childhood overall, and then maybe a favorite memory you had?
Hmm. I gave you a couple of the crazy memories that I had. Probably respect. You know, like I
Okay.
said, my mother and father really raised me to really respect people and respect others more than anything else. Respect people's opinions. Um, and as I've grown older, Austin, to be totally honest with you, because of that, there are probably two things that don't bother me. Truth. You know, I believe in truth more than anything. If you tell me the truth, I'm fine. And if it's funny, truth and funny. If someone makes a joke about me, you know, I got a lump on my head, and everybody makes a joke about. It's true, and it's funny. I mean, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't upset me. It doesn't make me anything. But because of my mom and dad and how I was raised, it was one of those situations. As a kid, when people talked about my head, when people talked about, and at the time I was chubby, I was a chubby kid, and people called me fat boy. Those things are true, and the truth sometimes is funny. So it's a situation. So as I grew older, those are two things that never bothered me. Those are two things that I rely on more than anything else. If I'm a great story, I'm at you Albany, and obviously I have a southern twang. I'm from the South. I'm from Florida, and one of our players, he does me an impression of me perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. And he did it without me seeing it a lot of times. And he finally did it in front of the head coach. The head coach was like, "Well, do you mind?" His name's Dean Grogg, and Dean's an unbelievable young man. And Dean was like, he's like, "Coach D." I said, "No, I don't mind." And he stood up and did it. It was spot on. I mean, even the way I draw circles on the board and how I talk about everything, I couldn't help but laugh. All the guys and the head coach was like, "Does it bother you?" Doesn't bother me at all. Truth and funny do not bother me because how I was raised and raised in the environment I was raised in is that if it's true about you, if it's funny about you, why get upset?
Yeah. So, who inspired your love for football and maybe your dreams and your heroes growing up?
Well, obviously, like I said, my sisters were athletes, so being an athlete, that's what inspired me. But as a young man, my cousin, who I got caught with breaking it in ring,
Okay.
his name is Johnny Davis, and he was playing football, and I had a lot of young men in the neighborhood that also played football that inspired me. But my mother was a cheerleader coach, and she's been a cheerleader
Okay.
coach for probably about the last 60 years. She's in,
Wow.
she's in the Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame. She's 81 years old, and she still goes out with the cheerleaders every now
Oh,
and again.
that's awesome.
With her being a cheerleader coach, it made me want to play because she was always at the games. So I was always at the games, watching the games. That's what kind of made me want to play. So as soon as I turned 8 years old, I wanted to be on the field. Now, the only thing about it is my mother not only loves the game of football, my mother was the loudest person at the game of football. So I used to always get joked on by my friends like, "Man, your mother, we hear your mother over everyone." And so I've always heard that. So all my life. So she inspired me. But who inspired me? Johnny Davis was my cousin, and he was an unbelievable running back who was getting scholarship offers in the ninth grade.
Oh,
And
wow.
he just took a turn for the worse and got addicted to drugs and ended up in and out of jail. But he was an unbelievable football player up until the ninth grade. For some reason, he decided he just didn't want to do it anymore and just didn't do it. But he was the first one that inspired me to go play football at the West Tampa Boys and Girls Club for the Tampa Spartans. And the coaches there, Coach Pamuri being one of those coaches, and Bob Alorda, I never forget his name, Robert Alorda. I never forget. He was my first coach when I was 8 years old, but I was always overweight. So when I turned 11, I couldn't play Pee Wee anymore because I was already 110 pounds, 120 pounds. I was already like 5'6", 5'7". So I was 11 years old, and I had to play with the varsity. So I'm playing 13, 14, and 15 years old at 11. So I had to get tough quick. So
Yeah.
I learned to tackle real early and real fast. So my love of the game was because of my cousin, but I grew with the game because of the coaches at the West Tampa Boys and Girls Club that were around me, and my mom and dad constantly pushing me. Probably the most thing that was very important, Austin, was my mom and dad absolutely never let me quit anything.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you're not playing. It doesn't matter if you're not starting. It doesn't matter. You are not quitting. If you start, you're going to finish. No matter what it is, you're going to finish it. So I knew in my mind that if I started it, there was no, and that was with all our kids. My mother and father were like that with all their kids. If you start something, you're not quitting. So it was a situation where I understood that. So when I went in, I went all in because I knew I couldn't quit if I didn't like it.
That was exactly how obviously my dad raised me as well. So with that type of mindset and growing up like that, how has that been a challenge now with kind of the way our culture has shifted, where it's like a lot of people just start and quit like it's nothing?
That's probably, I tell people, and I know we're going to talk about a subject later on, with the jumping and transferring and all the other things. That's probably the toughest part for me because when I got into coaching, I didn't get into coaching because of the X's and the O's, and we'll talk about that later on. I got into it because of the young men. I got into it because I wanted to change lives of young men. And now there are times where I'm not spending no more than 6 months with a young man. So how can I develop a relationship? That's the toughest part about it for me. You can't develop relationships anymore because these young men are gone within sometimes 6 months. Now, we have young men here now at Robert Morris University. His name is Jamar Shagag. Shagag has been with us for 6 years. I mean, he's been through us through COVID and everything, and he's one of the leaders on our team. He's one of the captains on our team. And the crazy thing about it, we'll let him go to recruit, and Shagag calls me and say, Coach, this guy ain't for the team. That guy's not going to get recruited. I can guarantee that because this young man has developed a relationship with us. It's unbelievable. So it is tough for me now, Austin, with guys leaving and quitting and stuff like that because I don't know what the mindset is of a lot of these young men. It's like they're not thinking about stuff. So it bothers me when guys just are allowed to quit because I was never allowed. I mean, anything. And I think that probably had a lot to do with my cousin I was telling you about, Johnny Davis.
Yeah.
He wasn't allowed to quit. Like, if he didn't like something, he could quit, and his mom and dad, they didn't bother. So I don't know if that had anything to do with him going the wrong direction. I just know that I couldn't leave it alone once I started.
Yeah. Well, that's great wisdom. But let's jump back to your high school career. And what all sports did you play in high school?
Actually, I played 3 sports. And the sport I loved was basketball. Football wasn't the sport I loved. I grew up watching Dr. J and the 76ers, and I loved basketball.
How many Dr. J guys do we have around here? I mean, like everybody we talk to loved Dr. J.
Dr. J was the man. That's why people put in the argument about LeBron and Jordan. I say, look, great player, but Dr. J was unbelievable. Some of the things Dr. J did on the court were long before anybody else could do them. So I was a huge Dr. J fan. So I always wanted to be Dr. J. But I also knew if I wanted school paid for, it wasn't going to be in basketball. It was basketball, football, and I also threw the shot put in track. I ran track when I was in junior high at Webb Junior High School for 8th and 9th grade. I ran track. And I was pretty fast. When I got to high school, I decided just to throw the shot put. And I ended up winning state in the shot. I threw 59, 11 and a half.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
State shot put. So I won state shot put. So the situation, I played 3 sports, loved all 3 of them. The wrestling coach tried to get me to come out, but I didn't want to wrestle because I didn't want to lose weight. And if
Yeah.
I was going to wrestle, it was going to be unlimited. But a good friend of mine was wrestling unlimited, and I didn't want to wrestle in his spot, so I wasn't going to get down to 200. I was 230, Austin. I wasn't trying to get back down to 220 to wrestle. So
And then get back up again for football season. Yeah.
exactly. So I did those three sports. I enjoyed those three sports. I was good at good at track. I was good at football. I was so at basketball. I just enjoyed playing basketball.
Yeah.
I just loved the camaraderie, and I had some great friends that were great basketball players.
Awesome. What do you have a favorite high school memory as a football player?
Favorite high school memory as a football player? Yeah, I do. It goes back to my dad again. I also played fullback and I played linebacker in high school. And I never forget, this guy broke a run. And I turned and I ran the guy down and chased him down. And I think I chased him like 50 or 60 yards. And I grabbed him from behind. I got him getting in the touchdown. And I yanked him down. And I'm on the ground laying down. I'm tired as I don't know what. And all I hear from the sideline is, "Get your butt up, boy. You're not tired. Get back." Telling me to get back on the field. I look over at him like, "You got to be kidding me." So so that's probably one of the memories I have more than anything else. And, obviously getting a scholarship at the University of Miami is probably one of my best memories. The crazy part about it, Ken, is that I got the scholarship, but when Coach Johnson made the visit to the school, I was homesick. So I never got to meet Coach Johnson at the school. And so my head coach, when I got to school, he said, Coach Johnson came by yesterday. I said, "Oh, okay." He's like, "You probably need to be here if head coach is going." I said, "I had no idea it was coming." So I said, "I can't do anything about being sick. I probably wouldn't make it if he was here." So I wasn't there when he was there. So it's probably the other memory that I have about high school football.
That's a memory to forget, not to forget either. So, Bernard, as we transition from high school, we're going to get into college and your playing career in a second, but was there anyone specific that had an influence on your high school football career? Was there a coach?
No. I won't even talk about my high school coaches because I didn't have a relationship with my high school coaches. So I'll stay away from that. It's a situation I won't even speak about it. I didn't have a good a high school relationship with my coaches, so I won't speak about that. I'll tell you something that's funny, though, Ken, and it's weird. That I tell a lot of people this. I had no idea the University of Miami had a football team.
Wow. Really?
Until 1983. Had no idea they even had a football team. And the reason why, growing up as a kid, I watched pro football. I wasn't big college football. I didn't really watch a whole lot of college football. And I was a huge Dolphins fan. I wanted to be Mercury Morris. I wanted to be Larry Johnson. I wanted to be, those are the guys I wanted to be. Paul Warfield. Those are the guys I wanted to be. I wanted to be a skill position. So that's what I watched. So in 1983, when Miami was getting ready to play Nebraska for the national championship, I said to myself, Nebraska's about to beat the brakes off of this team because I had no idea who Miami was. And when I watched that game and I watched that team at the University of Miami play, and I watched how that team played as a group and played as a unit, and they beat one of the top teams in the nation, I said to myself, I'd like to play there.
Yeah.
So when I became a senior and I started getting letters from the University of Miami, it really excited me more than anything else that I had an opportunity to go there. So no, there was no one in high school, Ken, that like jumped out at me as like, "Hey, this is a great role model." No, that didn't happen. Now I did have some great teachers. Don't get me wrong, I had some outstanding teachers at Lato High School. The crazy part about my high school, kid, is we won my sophomore year. We had a winning season. Then we didn't have a winning season after that. Now, mind you, the last time my high school had a winning season, was 1993. We have not had a winning season since
Wow.
then. I love the Lato Falcons to death, but when it comes to football, they're known for track and soccer, but when it comes to football, they're horrendous. We just weren't good at all. I came out in 85. Mike Helt, who went to Notre Dame, he was a center that went to Notre Dame. He came out in 86. And there's another wide receiver that came out years later that went to a bigger school. His name is Mike. I can't think of Mike's last name. He went to Ohio State. So we're not known for football. So it's one of those situations.
So they're the team you want to schedule every year then?
Yeah, pretty much. That's schedule.
Homecoming.
Homecoming. There we go.
So let's jump to college. You shared with why you chose Miami, but take us inside the U as people hear on TV all the time in that '80s period. What made the U special, Bernard?
I'll be totally honest with you, Ken. The thing that I loved about the University of Miami, the thing I still love about the University of Miami, Miami won 5 national championships, but it was with 4 different coaches. And the reason
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much is because when I first got to the University of Miami, if I did something the wrong way, it wasn't the coaches that said anything to me. It was the players that said, no, that's not how we do things here. Miami was a player-driven football team. And I say that in a very respectful way of Coach Johnson, Coach Erickson, Coach Snellenberger. What I mean by that is they set the standard and the players kept the standard going.
Mm.
And everyone that came into the University of Miami knew the standard because of the players that were there. And that was the most important thing about the University of Miami. So when I got there and I did something wrong, Jerome Brown pulled me to the side and said, that's not how we do things. When Alonzo Highsmith and Melvin Bratton said, that's not how we did things. So that's I believed in those guys, and I believed in what those guys were telling me. And, when I was in the linebacker room with Winston Moss and George Myra and Rod Carter and, I can go on and on, all the guys that I looked up to at that time, outstanding players saying, we do it this way. We do it this way. So I think that's what made the University of Miami so good in those days is that the players understood what the assignment was that the coaches gave them, and they carried out the assignment, not only on the field, but also off the field. I tell you, the other great thing about the University of Miami, when Coach Johnson first got there in 1984, I think the graduation rate was like 20%.
Mm.
When he left in 89, the graduation rate was 80%. So it
Wow.
wasn't just about winning football games. I know people thought that because we were winning football games, but it was also about taking your butt to class and graduating from college. And so to take the graduation rate up that high, what Coach Johnson did, he made it a prerequisite that you graduate from college. You put yourself in position and you graduate from college. And that's what he did a great job of. And like I said, he brought the right players in with the right mindset. He's probably one of the best people I've ever seen of evaluating talent. I mean, he's fine and stuff. I just tell you one crazy story. And because everybody, I know Austin knows this name. So Russell Maryland.
Yeah.
Russell Maryland, people that came in and played when I was there. Russell was recruited by 2 schools, Indiana State and the University of Miami. That's the only 2 offers that he got coming out of high school. And the only reason he got an offer from the University of Miami is because they had a scholarship left over. And one of the coaches knew his father. And so he came in, and automatically when he came in, we told him the standard. And Russell knew the standard. That's why he became the first pick in the draft in 1991, because the players knew the standard, and they carried out the standard of what the coaches had. That's what I think made Miami so great in those days.
Awesome.
Bernard, we had Mark Richt on here, I think it was 2 months ago, and same thing. He talked about Miami in very much the same way. And I shared with him that day, Miami's where my heart was. I wanted to go there in 1981, visited there, came home from my trip on my 4th trip, had oranges in my eyes. I want to go to Florida, play at Miami. And my dad says, I'll take all your visits, which he meant well. And I got caught up and went to Notre Dame. But, that's when Schnellenberger was 1980 and they were just starting to have football, like you said.
Yeah.
But everyone talks about Miami the same way, and what a great tradition. You mentioned I think you won 2 national champions when you were there. Your record when you were there was 55-5.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I remember them calling you all the bad boys of college football. What was your mindset? And I think this is really good for listeners. What type of mindset does a middle linebacker in a program like Miami have to have, Bernard, and to be a leader on that team? Share that with us.
The mindset I had to have when I first got there, and I'll never forget, I got a red shirt in my first year. So I was upset about being redshirted. I just left Lato High School. I was the man. I got to Miami, and I wasn't playing as much. I got redshirted. So, of course, you call mom and dad. I'm like, I'm coming home. I'm not going to stay. And mom and dad like, no, you're staying. You're not coming home. We're already giving you a room to your sister, so you're not going back. So, those situations. But when I got there, the thing that's probably so prevalent to me about Miami being the way that they were was the national championships that we won and the guys we won them with. It's just it's hard to pinpoint any one thing, Ken, more than anything else. Um, but what Coach Johnson did for us as a unit, what he did for us as a team, the way he had us believing in ourselves, what he had us believing in, and we always had each other's back. I always tell people it's funny that people think that we were this renegade bunch that didn't know what was going on and everything else. The only thing that made me upset about the documentary, the Catholics versus the convicts, is that they didn't have convicts versus Catholics. That's the only thing that made me upset because I knew the hard work that was put into what we did every single day.
Yeah.
I knew that when we had inside run and practice, it was going to be a bloodbath. I knew that in 7-on-7, if Randall Hill caught the ball across the middle, I was going to try to take his head off, and we were going to talk noise to each other. Saturdays to us was a day off. I truly believe that because our practice weeks were so hard and so intense, and we went at each other so much. That's what made us the great team that we were. That's what helped me win 2 national championships when I was there. And the thing that made me the player that I was is when I first got there, and I was telling you about what Coach Wanstead had told me, I was like, Coach, how do I get on the field? Because obviously I didn't play the first year. So I made it in my mission that the second year I'm playing every special teams. I'm going to travel. When this bus leaves, I'm leaving. And the way I got on the field was Coach Wanstead told me, you need to learn every position. You need to learn Mike linebacker, Will linebacker, Sam linebacker. So in my second year at the University of Miami, if somebody got hurt, if Will linebacker got hurt, I was a starter. If the Sam linebacker got hurt, I was a starter. If the Mike linebacker, I was just. So that gave me the flexibility of always being on the field with special teams as well as at the linebacker position. So it was a great situation for me. But that's how I learned, which is amazing to me right now. It's probably the same thing funny for you guys. It's like, well, I literally have players right now. I have an offensive lineman say, Coach, I'm a guard. No.
That's so true.
You're an offensive lineman. You're not a guard. You're an offensive lineman. You should be able to play any position. Coach, I can't. I've had safeties. Safeties, Coach. You got a strong safety and a weak safety. Coach, I played strong safety. No, you don't. So the thing that helped me was learning the positions. The thing that helped me become a leader was when I stepped on that field, guys believed in me. Again, my dad pulled me to the side and told me that I didn't have to prove anything. He was 100% correct because my teammates already had me believing in myself. My first game starting, I was a redshirt freshman. We played Texas Tech. And I didn't know I was going to start until I got to the game. Something happened with the middle linebacker, and Coach said, "You're starting." Coach Johnson told me I was starting. I said, "Okay." And I'll never forget pregame, Ken Austin. I went in there, and I'm calling the play. I'm like, Kings G. Come. And they're like, "What did you say?" I said, Kings G. Cover. Speak up. I mean, it's like, and all of them like just exploded on me. If you're going to be in this huddle, you're going to take demand of this huddle. I don't care if you're a freshman. I don't care what you are. You're taking demand of this huddle right now. Speak up. Make it clear. Make us understand what you want. And so at that point, I realized I had to get in there and go, Kings G, cover 2. And they understood. And that made me understand when you're in here, doesn't matter your age, if you're in this field, if you're on this field, we respect you as a player, and you have to get it done.
Well, you're absolutely right. That maturity, it's not around anymore. A lot of places. Oh, why is coach getting on me for not speaking up in the huddle? Like you said, your players were saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But again, that's what my teammates. That's what I was taught when I got there. That's what they believed in. So that's what made me believe that I could do it. So my dad, like I said, my dad was 100% correct. It wasn't about anybody outside of like, is this redshirt sophomore who's 19 years old, is he going to be able to, win this game? I'll tell you a funny story. This will be a great story. You guys will love it. So before the national championship game, one of my teammates is a very boisterous young man. His name's Michael Irvin. And I'll never forget, Mike and I had a conversation before the game. I forgot where we were sitting at. He was like, well, you know what? Mike was like, well, I might as well go ahead and get this MVP, everybody. And I looked at him and say, not this time, champ. This one belongs to me. He looked at me. He was like, it's your first game ever really, really started. What are you talking about? I say, the stage has been set. The eyes are already on me. I said, everybody's expecting me to play well anyway. So I'm going to play well enough. I'm going to win it. And he was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I end up winning it. Of course, I'm doing it because of Mike. I'm not doing it because I'm thinking I'm going to win it, most valuable player.
Right.
Mike's talking trash, so I got to talk trash too. I got to kind of match his energy. That's what it boils down to. But after the game was over and I had the most valuable player trophy, And I walked in the locker room, and Mike looked at me. He said, "You said you're going to do it." I said, "Yeah, I did." But I didn't did because the situation I was kind of like just being boisterous and just being Mike matching Mike's energy. But I did end up winning it after all. But that's what the guys made you believe in. That's what I
Yeah.
took. They made me believe that I could win the most valuable player because I knew the guys around me. I knew Randy Shannon and Rod Carter, who were the linebackers next to me at the time. I knew they were going to do their job. They were going to make me do my job. And
Yeah.
then I knew in front of me I had Dan Silly. I'm sorry, I had Derwin Jones and Bill Hawkins and Greg Mark so I knew the guys I had around me, Benny Blades behind me, Tolbert Bain and Donnie. The guys who were around me, I knew that they believed in me and I had to get it done.
Awesome.
Some good players you rattled off there. Go ahead, Austin. I'm sorry.
So, obviously you've become a coach. So from your perspective, tell us some of your strengths as a player and maybe some growth opportunities you had as a player looking back from the coaching perspective you have now.
Uh, I, I tell everyone this story, Austin. I sound like a broken record when I say it. I played 2 years in the NFL. And the reason I played 2 and I didn't play 10 is I was never a student of the game. Never. I'm 6'2". I was 230, 235 when I played. Ran a 4.7, and I could hit. It carried me through high school. It carried me through college. So when I got drafted by the Bengals, I said, it's going to carry me through the NFL. But I tell everyone, I tell all the players, if you're ever fortunate enough to be one of those 1,696 guys, if you're ever fortunate enough to be in that locker room, you have to say to yourself, from the neck down, I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
I'm big enough. I'm strong enough. I'm fast enough. I'm athletic enough. I deserve to be in this locker room. It's from the neck up, whether you're going to play 5, 10, 15, or 20 years in the NFL. And I didn't have that. And when I got there, I refused to become a student of the game. I just wanted to hit. I just wanted to play. I didn't want to study the game. I didn't want to do all those things. I didn't want to realize that it's always based on the situation, down a distance, personnel, and formation that I got to line up. And if I see a 2-by-2 set with one back in the backfield, I couldn't rattle those things off back when I played. So as a coach, I have become a student of the game. Now, your dad didn't know this when he hired me as a linebacker coach, but it's a situation where I would sit in my office and Coach Dennis Danielson, he gave me the defense. I drew up the defense versus every formation on offense because I was still learning the game of football.
Yeah.
From the X's and O's standpoint, not the physical standpoint. Like Coach Danielson told me, my individual was literally 10 minutes long. And Coach Danielson like, what is wrong with you? And Coach was like, 10 minutes? What do you mean 10 minutes? So what Coach Danielson told me, he said, you got to go watch college film. You got to go watch your practice film and your game film and create individual drills from that. So I've become a student of the game, Austin, because of being a coach, not because of my playing experiences. My playing experiences, I know how to do certain things. I'll give you a prime example. I naturally knew how to, if the quarterback dropped back and the ball was here, when his front hand came off of it, I knew that my instincts told me to break on the ball.
Yeah.
I never thought about his hand coming off, long arm. I never thought about those things. So those are the things I had to teach my players. I say, guys, the ball's like this and the quarterback's like this. He can only throw the ball here.
Yeah.
He can't throw it over here. He can't throw it over here. I don't care if he's looking here or looking here. He can't throw it over there. His shoulders are still here. Until his shoulders turn, his hand comes off, you don't have to worry about breaking where you need to break or anything. If his shoulders are here and you're in front of him and he's looking at you and he looks here, it doesn't make a difference. Stay right where you are. Now, his front hand comes off and he turns his shoulders. So that was a natural instinct for me.
Yeah.
I had to teach it to the guys. So I had to become a student of the game of what I had been seeing to teach it to players. So I became a student of the game once I became a coach. So that's the crazy thing about my journey as a football player. I was always just a good player who could hit. Now, I always tell people, if I'd have knew what I know now as a player, I probably would have played 10 years. But I didn't.
Yeah.
And I refused to do it. That's why I always constantly tell my players that don't know their plays, and I'm sure you deal with it all the time, Austin, in high school.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Nobody wants to study the playbook. It's one of those situations where you're trying to get it instilled in them. And so it took me a long time, and I'm still learning as a coach. So that's the great thing about it. I'm still learning as a coach and still growing as a coach because I was never a student of the game.
Well, that's great wisdom because you're so right. I mean, a lot of people just rely on their physical gifts, but I mean, you watch so many players who elevate past players that are more gifted than they are, but because they've tapped into that side of things. So that's great wisdom.
It's
What?
crazy you say that. I told my players one time, I said, take away the accolades. Take away the accolades. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Who was the
Yeah,
draft? And without a doubt, everybody says Aaron Rodgers.
yeah,
But you put him on the field, and you looked at what one of them's done and what the other one's done, and one's obviously more talented than the other, but the other one makes better decisions and better mindset, and he studies the game. I don't know if he studies it more, but we know how well he studies the game, and he understands he's not selfish when it comes to the game. He's never been the highest paid player on his team. All those things form the player that we know as Tom Brady.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And also you forget that it's a process and it's a growth. It's he wasn't the Tom Brady when he comes into the league. He ends up being Tom Brady because he was just relentless about I'm going to get a little bit better in this area, a little bit better in this area, a little bit better. And over time, the other thing too is it gives him the ability to play for a long time.
100%.
Yeah. But so what are some highs and lows of your college career?
High of my college career was obviously, winning most valuable player in the national
Okay.
championship game because you have that opportunity. Probably one of the lows, I had two of them. After I won most valuable player, of course your head blows up a little bit. I'm 19 years old. I come back for the next season. I'm the starter, and we're playing, and we lose to Notre Dame. And I made a bonehead play in the game, dropped my man coverage because I thought I could make a play and end up scoring a touchdown on a throwback to the running back. And again, it was maybe some stuff you remember. That cost you certain things. So we come back that next week. And I get benched. And that was the other great thing about Miami. The great and bad thing about Miami. Once you get benched, you're not getting your job back. I can tell you that because the guy that got put in there, he's just as talented. He's just as hungry as you are. So I get benched. So I don't recover. I play in the games, but I don't play. It's one of those situations. I'm back on special teams. I'm back in special teams. I'm back in reserve. I'm going in when this guy gets hurt, but I'm not the starter anymore. So that's probably the first one. And then my senior year, getting ready. My senior year, we're playing, Coach Erickson. He's in there. Coach Johnson's not there anymore. And we're playing Missouri. And a guy cut blocks me. He takes my knee out. And he stands over the top of me and he says, I hope it's torn. And I use some explicit words to try to grab him by his legs. I'm trying to pull him down, but my knee is killing me. Luckily, it was just a stretched meniscus, and it wasn't anything serious. I had to sit out 3 weeks. So those are two low points in my college career. Nothing staggering, just one of those situations. Some you had to fight back from, some in a little adversity, nothing serious.
Yeah. What has kept Miami from returning to its dominance, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think the biggest thing that hurts Miami more than anything else is that, and I'm hoping I don't know what Coach Cristobal is doing. I think every coach that's been in there has been saying, we need to get back to the way it was. Well, no, that's not true. You need to meet these young men where they are because they're not exactly what you said, Austin. They don't have the same mindset that we had back then. Let's meet them where they are, and let's find out what makes them tick. And that's what's going to help you build up a better football team. So I'm hoping that's what Coach Cristobal is doing now. He's not trying to make it the Miami of old. What he's trying to do right now is understand that this is the Miami we are right now. Let's use these players. Let's get them where we need to be at. Let's make these guys successful how they are now as opposed to trying to make them what we used to be.
Yeah.
That's good. Well said. That's definitely well said. Bernard, where at this point in your life, before we transition to your pro career, where are you at spiritually right there?
In Miami? I was nowhere spiritually right there. I had a Bible next to my bed. To be totally honest with you. Other than that, no. As far as my walk with Christ or anything like that, nah, nothing like that. I believed in God. I mean, that's probably the closest I was that I believed in God. I knew there was a God, but it wasn't a situation. I wasn't walking with Christ at all.
Appreciate your honesty.
Oh yeah.
Austin, go ahead.
Do you know any other way, Ken?
No.
So then you get drafted. Tell us about your draft experience.
Yeah, it was weird, man, because I had been told I may go first, second, and third, but in my mind, I'm like, with your career, you didn't start every game, so on and so forth. I said you're probably gonna go about the third and fourth round. That was my mind was telling me about the third and fourth round, and I didn't want to be around anymore because I saw guys have the fanfare and not get drafted. I'm like, I didn't want to go through that.
Yeah.
And so the night before the game, I stayed in a hotel room, kind of relaxed, get away from everybody, by myself, Ken, by myself. I stayed in a hotel room by myself. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm going home to the draft, and I pull up to my mom and dad's house. They have over 100 people at the house. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I told them, I said, I don't want anybody here. And they're like, and they had a big party. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I just walk in the house and I go in my bedroom, my old bedroom. I just lay in the bed and I go to sleep. I just go to sleep. I mean, I'm so disappointed that I got to be around all these people because after the first pick gets drafted and my name don't get called. So I'm like, then they're like, when do you think you're gonna go? I'm like, so I go in my room, I go to sleep. And so I'm in bed, I'm knocked out, and then all of a sudden my sister Cheryl, she's the youngest of the twins, she's the youngest of the sisters. She opens my door. She's like, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the phone. I was like, yeah, okay. She said, no, the Bengals are on the phone. I get up, and it's Sam Weiss, and I'm elated. I'm excited. I go all the way in the back room away from everybody because everybody's screaming now. Everybody's losing their mind because they know somebody's on the phone calling me. So I go in the back, and my dad comes in the room with me, and we're talking. And I was like, thank you very much. You just got drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm like, he said, I'm sorry, I can be more excited. I said, I'll see you guys as soon as possible. So it was a great situation. And I walk out and the house just erupts and everybody just loses their mind. But it was one of those situations where I wanted to be with just my family, but my family wanted me to be with extended family. So it was an absolutely great experience, one I love. I mean, probably the most amazing thing about it, I'll never forget, Austin, when I made the team. And Ken, you know this guy's name, Mitchell Price.
Yes.
Price played at Tulane. And I made the team, and Mitchell was an 8th round pick, so I was a 3rd round. So me and Mitchell decided to be roommates. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in the living room after both of us had made a team, and we looked at each other and we started dying laughing. I said, are you thinking what I'm thinking? He's like, yeah, we're in the NFL. So it was an amazing, it was like an epiphany hit us, and like it was like an awakening, like everything you fought for your entire life now just came to fruition as far as football goes.
That's Bernard,
awesome.
you brought a great segue. People that are on the outside that have never had the opportunity to experience that, they hear NFL, and you and I both know it stands for not for long. And you hear those words like, we no longer need your services, or we got someone better than you, or we got more money invested in this guy, waived, released, cut, fired. I was cut 4 times in the NFL. Talk to our listeners a little bit about what are some of the emotions that you went through when you got released and I think you moved to Seattle, then you went back to Bengals and then to Dallas the next year. What were your emotions and thoughts during that period of time?
When I got released by the Bengals, I was like, I'm going to get picked up. And I did. Then when I got picked up, I was like, I'm going to get picked up. So when I got released I left Cincinnati on plan B free agency. To go to Dallas. So it was a situation, I'm like, I should go to Dallas. It's the defense I played in college. I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to pick it up. The crazy thing about not being a student of the game, when I got drafted by the Bengals were a 3-4 defense. I never played in a 3-4 defense. And so by me not being a student of the game, now I got to figure out this defense from a whole nother aspect. But I'm not studying the playbook. I'm just hoping I can get out there and make some moves. And my first year, I was pretty doggone good because they put me on goal line. And on goal line, I can hit, So, again, it goes back to what I've always done. And I was always the goal line linebacker. So I went in there. Even when they cut me and brought me back, I was still the goal line linebacker. But when I left and I went to Dallas, my mindset was play for Coach Johnson. I know the defense. Boom, boom, boom. Everything is fine. But when I got divorced by the NFL, I didn't get cut. They divorced. When I got divorced by the NFL, it was probably the the hardest thing I had ever faced, because it goes back to what all of us talk about. That's what we believe we are. We
Yeah.
believe we're a football player. I mean, so it was a situation. I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna get picked up, and then 6 months go by, you're not picked up. A year goes by, and all I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out my life. I'm trying to figure out what am I gonna do with my life. I'm just spending money. I'm hanging out where I shouldn't be hanging out at. I'm flying here. I'm flying there. I'm trying business ventures. I'm trying to start a detail business. I'm trying to start a construction trucking business. I'm trying to be a manager for a musical group. I'm trying to get a Domino's franchise. I'm trying to find everything. The toughest thing about it is, and you know this more than anyone, trying to find that high is
Yep.
so hard. Just trying to find, you can't walk in Walmart and do this and 50,000 people start screaming. It don't happen anymore. So that high you get from football, you're trying to find that job that's going to help you do that. So I played arena football for a couple of years, 94, 96. And then when I got cut from arena football, I was like, oh, this is over. This is truly over. So it's one of those situations where you're trying to make it, and your mind is like, am I not good enough? And once you realize that you're not, that's when it hits you. And that's when it hits more than anything else. But I never forget when I got cut from playing arena ball, and it'll take us probably to the next segue. In 96, one of my friends by the name of Anthony Bryant, he was a believer. And I told him I was doing this. I'm told him I'm doing that. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. He said, you're trying everything. He said, why don't you try Jesus? I said, get out of my face. I'm like, well, I'm not. No. He's like, why not? He said, you tried everything else. Why not try Jesus? And I'll never forget, it was this young lady that I was seeing, and I remember her saying she had prayed and asked God to help her through something, and she would give up something. So I was like, you know what? I'll do that. And I said, God, if you just help me get through this and maneuver this, I'll give this up, whatever the situation may be. And I'll never forget, blessings start happening. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So, and I went to this church, this Bible-based church called Bible-based in Tampa, Florida. And I had never heard this before, Ken. You know how they do the invitation to come accept Christ and accept the church and stuff. I had never heard this one ever. The guy said, if you don't know the Lord, come. And then he said, if you're not sure if you're saved, stand up. I was like, I had never heard that before. And I stood up because I didn't know. And then you go to the back and you sit with a counselor, and the young lady's like, I said, I accepted Christ as my Savior. I know He died for me on the cross, so on and so forth. She said, you're saved. She said, there's no epiphany going to happen. She said, it does with some people, but you're saved. Go and act like you're saved. And from that point on is when I started acting like I was saved. But to answer your question, I never found that high. And that's the toughest thing about being cut from something you fought for your entire life, and now you don't have it anymore. It's divorced you. It's told you it doesn't want you anymore.
Yes.
And you keep trying to go back, but it doesn't want you. And you're begging to get back, and it doesn't want you. It's the toughest thing, and it's heart-wrenching. But again, it goes back, and I'm constantly telling my players there are 1,696 jobs in the NFL. That's it. 1,696. They are not replacing 1,696 workers every year. They're only replacing 300 and something, if that. So you try to get these guys to understand. I'm not telling you can't make it. I'm telling you how hard it is to make it and how hard it is to stay. So you have to do something special. And I wasn't doing anything special when I got there, Ken. I wasn't a student of the game. Yeah, I was big and could hit, but so were all the other guys on the team. So I wasn't separating myself at all. And so it's one of those situations you finally come to the conclusion that it's over. You're not as special as you thought you were. Now what are you going to do?
Let me interrupt you for a moment. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to do this podcast with my son, Austin. For the last 10 years, Austin and I have had many intimate conversations on his drive home from work. Some of these father-son conversations have been lighthearted, while others have been very deep and emotional. Over the Christmas holidays, we decided to start a podcast called Awaken Kingdom Culture, where we invite our friends to share their life-changing stories with you, our listeners. This podcast is done under our nonprofit, The Win Awakening, a sports ministry network for coaches, athletes, and those who lead. Our vision is to awaken hearts and minds, one story at a time. Our mission is to encourage coaches and athletes and those who lead to live from a place of victory, regardless of success, records, or the scoreboard. Our goal is to create safe environments where transparency and vulnerability are accepted, and value and worth are recognized in an atmosphere of love. Right in the middle of your mess, I'm reminded daily that the most important person of my day is the one in front of me, and that one matters, and that you are the one. WinAwakening.org is our website. I encourage you to visit our website where you can encounter the good news of who you are in Christ and what you already possess and how to live from it. There you'll find blogs, videos, Andrew's journal, and this podcast, Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. I'm thankful for all of you who have given and are a member of Team Win. Awaken Kingdom Culture is listener supported. And if you'd like to support us, you can go to winawakening.org. We are a nonprofit. I encourage you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And please like, share, and write a review on Spotify or YouTube. Okay, it's time to get back to the podcast. You mentioned a lot of the different jobs you were trying to find your place. Let's talk about, how did you get into coaching? Let's transfer to coaching. What was that first coaching opportunity? And then how did your playing career, Bernard, help you become a good coach?
I got to tell you this story before I get into coaching. I think I've told you this story before, kid. It was when the first thing that helped me become a good coach, and I realized I wanted to be a coach, was God humbling me with no the experience I had being humble was absolutely unbelievable. And I'll never forget. Like I was telling you, I was trying to open a Domino's franchise. Well, part of opening a Domino's franchise is you have to work there also, which was no big deal to me. I'll work, I'll do what I got to do. I worked at Domino's for like 8 months. I did everything, made pizzas, everything. I was a delivery guy. I did it all. Within those 8 months in Tampa, Florida, Bernard Clark, University of Miami, most valuable player, third round draft pick by the Bengals, native of Tampa, Florida. Within those 8 months, one person recognized me.
Wow.
One person recognized who I was and made me understand right then, because I had given my life to Christ by then. God helped me understand this. You don't have a reputation. No one knows you. There are over 350 million people in the world. Kim Kardashian has 10 million followers. 340 million people don't care who Kim Kardashian is. and that's what God helped me understand. You think you have a reputation. You think people know you. No one knows you. Humble yourself and do what you need to do to be the man I want you to be. So at that time, that's when my first coaching job, Santa Fe Catholic High School in Lakeland, Florida. And I was a car salesman also before I became, we'll get into that story later on. I was a car salesman. And I never forget, my manager at the car dealership, he said, "Hey, I want you to coach my son." Because, I played linebacker at Miami. He said, "I want you to coach my son." So I said, "Look, I'll do that, but I don't want to step on any toes. So I'll, do it the right way. Let's go meet the head coach." So I went and met the head coach. And I said, "Coach Hash, Jack Hash," I'll never forget. I said, "Coach, he would like me to show his son how to play some linebacker stuff." And the coach looks me in my eyes. I've never coached a day in my life, Ken. Nope. And he says, "I would be remiss if you weren't my defensive coordinator." And I look at this guy like he's out of his mind. I'm like, I never coached football a day in my life. And so don't ask me how he did it, how he got it. He handed me the Miami playbook from the University of Miami. I don't know how he got it, but he handed me the book. He said, can you learn this? I was like, I probably could learn this. And so my first coaching job at Santa Fe Catholic High School, I was a defensive coordinator, and I learned the Miami playbook. And I absolutely, again, it goes back to when I first sat in front of those young men, and they were looking at me the way you guys are looking at me. I said to myself, I must be saying something that they want to hear. That's what made me fall in love with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was saying something. I was expressing myself, and they were listening. And I had an audience. And it went back to my Miami days and went back to our football days, the camaraderie, the guys listening to each other, guys feeding off of each other. I got that energy again. That's what made me fall in love with it. But I didn't know. I know I didn't want to be a high school coach because I didn't want to deal with parents. And also know what I'm talking about. I did not deal with parents. So I knew I wanted to get into college. And so I reached out to Alex Wood. Alex Wood was a running back coach at the University of Miami when I played there with Dennis Erickson, my last year there. He was the head coach at James Madison University. I said, Coach, I want to get into coaching. He was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. And he said, okay. He said, if you're serious about it, he said, I want you to meet me at the conference, at the coaches conference in Dallas, Texas. I said, okay, Coach. So got a plane ticket. We called one of my buddies who's a pastor. He was a teammate of mine. Now he's a pastor out in Dallas. I said, hey, can I stay at the house with you? He said, absolutely. Come to the house, hang out, not a problem. So I flew out to Dallas. I went to the convention, had my suit on, whole nine, looking for Coach Wood. Nowhere to be found. I'm just walking around. You know how it is, Ken. I'm all lobby team. I'm part of the all lobby team. I'm there. You know how it is.
The whole lobby team.
I got my briefcase in my hand and walking around. Hey, Coach Alex Wood. And people start remembering me from football, because all football guys. Oh, Bernard Clark. Yeah, Coach Alex is up. So I run into Coach Alex Wood, and he walks up to me and say, oh, you're serious about it? I said, yeah, Coach, I'm serious about it. He said, okay, I'll see you later. That was it. That was it. And he called me Monday and asked me if I wanted to be on the defensive side of the ball at James Madison University. He knew I was serious about it. And so my first coaching job was at James Madison University. And that's when I knew I had fallen in love with it. Again, got in front of those guys and started talking. The thing that's helped me, I think, what helps me playing in the NFL, probably the same thing that helps you, Ken, it's immediate credibility. Yep. Because you played the game at the highest level, it's immediate credibility. Now, they want to know what you know now. That's the other thing. Yeah, you got credibility because you played. They want to ask you all the stories. How was this? How was that? How was that? But then, how much do you know? So it opens the door, being a former player in the NFL, being at University of Miami, it opens a door to get in, but eventually they want to know what you know as a coach and how much do you know.
Yeah. What was the biggest adjustment you had from transitioning from a player to now being a coach?
Me, studying the game. Studying the game. Locking myself in that room and drawing those plays on the board over and over and over and over until I had them instilled in my head. And understanding what cover 2 was, what cover 3 was, what pro formation was, what split zone was, and just knowing all the plays, stuff I'd never studied before. So now just studying the game of football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Austin, I don't know if you know this. Bernard knows the stories I've told him, but so Bernard's at James Madison. I just get the Liberty job. And I'm sitting in my office one night. I don't know what time it was. Let's say it was 8 o'clock. And I'm like, I don't know who I'm going to hire, linebacker coach. And I'm thinking, and so, Bernard knows this now as a head coach. I got all these resumes that are sitting in my, actually, it was in my drawer of my desk. And so I open up the drawer, and on the top of the pack is Bernard Clark. And I don't know Bernard from a hole in a wall. And in this profession, you're not supposed to hire someone you don't know at all. And there was something in my spirit. Obviously, I'm always attracted to guys that have been successful at what they've done, especially at the National Football League or college football. So that scares some people. But to me, that was something that was a positive. And so I called Bernard, not knowing him at all. And the next thing you know, over a couple, I think it was over a couple of weeks, maybe at the most, we hired Bernard as the linebacker coach. And spends 4 great years with us, which I'll let him talk about the rest of his career in a minute. But I got to tell you the story about Mom. So Mom, I don't know when I tell her that I hired him, but anyway, so the first week or so, Bernard's on the staff. we're out at practice. I think it was spring ball, and Mom came by for some reason, and later on she goes, "Who's the guy with that loud voice?" She goes, "He scared me half to death. He's so intimidating." And when Bernard shared earlier about his mom and dad is yelling, I said, "That's where they get it right there." But Mom, to this day, Mom will always say, "I was so afraid of Bernard, and now I know he's such a gentle giant." But share with our listeners, Bernard, from Liberty through your other assistant jobs, and then I'll chime in when we get to the head job. I want to ask you something about that in a minute. But tell us a little bit about your career once you came to us and then moved on to your other jobs.
Yeah, the great thing about when your dad hired me, also, and to add to the story a little bit, I get back to my office and I have a message from him, and I just playing racquetball. I was like, man, it's Coach Liberty called me. But he called me, I was like, no big deal. I'll call him on Monday because I was getting ready to go home to visit my mom.
Yeah.
Was it Mother's Day weekend? I'm not sure.
I think it might have been.
I was going home to visit my mom, and then I get back to my apartment, and now he left a message on my voicemail of my apartment. I'm like, oh, he's serious. and so I called him. I called your father, and I told him, I said, I'm going to visit my mom this weekend. Is it okay? He's like, well, Coach, I kind of want to talk about hiring you. I said, well, can we meet? So we met in Charlottesville. Was it Charlottesville we met in?
I think it was.
Me, Bob, Lord, and Dennis Danielson, and your dad met at this restaurant, and we talked, and we had a good time, and so the rest is history. So your dad gives me my first full-time coaching job, as a linebackers coach. And again, him and Coach Danielson both teach me the ropes of individual, how you grow your individual, how you make it longer. Now I can do individuals for almost an hour now because of your just watching film and realizing what guys needed to do and stuff like that. So my first year I get there, I'm a linebackers coach, and I think I'm real boisterous. I'm loud. I had to tone down. The last thing to leave me when I gave my life to Christ was profanity, Austin. So it's tough at times that I got to watch my mouth because I can get loud, and when guys aren't listening, I tend to go. But it was a great thing being at Liberty and being in the room with our Bible study and doing all those things. So my first year I'm there, Ken likes what I'm doing, so he asked me, he said, do you think you can be the special teams coach? I'm thinking, his special teams is not a joke, because I know how a special teams coach is. Good, bad. And I'm probably more sympathetic now because of your dad giving me the special teams coordinator job. Our special teams coordinator, he gets more time on the field. The OC and DC get mad at me all the time because I was a special teams coordinator. So for my next 3 years, I was special teams coordinator. And the great thing about it is you guys had him on your show. I had Sam Congatto on special teams. So we had an unbelievable monster on special teams. And our kickers and punters, those guys were pretty doggone good too. But there are times that, things didn't go the way we were supposed to go, and it was a tough situation. But he asked me to be special teams coach. In my first year being special teams coach, I had all the other coaches helping out. And I realized no one wants to do special teams. So the next year, I didn't want any of them helping. So I did it all myself. I did it all because, again, coaches, they're more in tune with their position. They're not really worried about special teams the way you are because you're the one responsible for it. So it didn't matter how many guys I had. What I realized from your dad was it didn't matter how many guys I had working with special teams. It didn't make a difference. If it went wrong, it was on me. So
right.
Kind of like, okay, I'm going to take it from everybody. I'm going to have somebody do some things, but I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure the special teams is where it needs to be at. So for the next 3 years, I was special teams coordinator and linebacker coach. Then Ken gets a call from Don Stroud. And I'm like, Ken, I'm fine. I don't want to be a linebacker coach. He's like, no, coach. I think he's calling you about being a defense coordinator. I'm like, what? I was like, he's like, no. He said, I think he wants you to be his defensive coordinator. And he's at Florida International University. And so I go down, I get an interview, and your dad was 100% correct. He offered me the defense coordinator's job, and I took it. We're from Florida, so it was a situation. Getting back to Florida was great. So I went there. I was there for a couple of years, and then I left there, and I went to USF. I was at USF for a year. Then Mario Cristobal, he got the head job at FIU and asked me to come back to FIU with him. So I went back to FIU a couple of years there. He fired me. So it was a situation. I left there. I went to Hampton University as a defensive coordinator. I was at Hampton University for a year, I think. Yeah, I was there for a year. and Coach Dave Wanstead was at the University of Pittsburgh. Coach Wanstead coached me. It goes back to what your dad said. Everybody knowing people. I got the job at FIU. We'll go back. I got a job at FIU because my buddy that I played with at Miami named Hurley Brown, he was on the coaching staff. Obviously, I got a job at USF because I was from Tampa. I knew the offensive line coach. His name was Coach Fry, and I knew some other coaches on the staff. And then I went back to FIU because of Mario. I got the job at Hampton University because the running back coach, I knew him from the recruiting trail. His name was Coach Steve Field. I got the job at Pitt, obviously, because Coach Wanstead coached me when I was at the University of Miami. So this is the crazy part about that job. I get to the University of Pittsburgh. We win the Big East championship, and we get fired.
What? What?
I'm on the road recruiting in Jacksonville. I got a home visit set up. I've already got 3 guys committed. I'm pumped. I'm getting everything rolling. I get a call from Coach Junko. Coach Junko's like, Coach, you just got fired. I was like, get out of here. We just got what? He said, well, Coach Wanstead just got fired, which means all of us just got fired.
Yes.
So we got fired. So we got fired, and I get back, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm in tears. I call my wife. She's in tears. And so I'm at the convention looking for a job. I'm like, I shouldn't be looking for a job. But I get I get hired at Colorado State. I go to Colorado State because Sonny Lubick used to be the head coach at Colorado State. He was our defensive coordinator at the University of Miami. I called Coach Lubick. He knows the head coach. I said, Coach, can you get me an interview? He said, I can get you an interview. I can't get you the job. I said, I don't need you to get me the job. I just need you to get me an interview. I'll get the job. So I get hired at Colorado State. We're horrible. We get fired. So then I go back to Hampton University because they need a linebacker coach. And so I go back to Hampton University, and I'm a linebacker coach, and I'm a defensive coordinator. Then I go to U-Albany. I go to U-Albany because the D-line coach at Pitt, him and I become best friends. His name is Greg Cattuso. We become real good friends. Greg said he's going for the head job at U-Albany. Greg gets the head job at U-Albany. He asked me to come. I'm the linebacker coach the first year. Then I'm a defensive coordinator for the next 3 years. And now I'm at Robert Morris University 2018. I get hired as the head coach. So, yeah, this coaching journey is crazy. And the crazy thing about it, I always tell people, and my wife is probably my strongest supporter. When I first started coaching back at James Madison University, I used to always say, by the time I'm 50, I want to be a head coach. Because I didn't think I had been in the profession long enough to get a head job right off the bat. I said, by the time I'm 50, I want to be a head coach. And I never forget, we get fired at Colorado State, and I'm in tears. I'm like, I can't keep doing this to her. We don't have kids, but I'm moving her here, I'm moving her here, I said, I just can't keep doing this, moving her all over the place. And I'm just going to do something else. I'm become a trucker. And I'm like, I'm going to become a truck driver, get some more stability. And my wife looks at me, and she's like, no, you're not. She said, you're a football coach. That's what you do. I'll take care of everything else like I've always done. I go work more, but you wait for the next call. You're a football coach. That's your job. And
wow.
Probably right as she told me that, I got a call from one of my former players at FIU named Kerry Guy. I remember Kerry saying to me, he said, Coach, thank you for changing my life. And I'm in tears. And I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I heard this pastor say a long time ago, and I always use a lot of my it says, don't let your dream become a distraction. And what it means by that is all those times I was looking to become a head coach, and I would send a resume here, I let it send it. My dream was to become a head coach. It was becoming a distraction because I wasn't learning along the way. And that's what my wife was trying to tell me. My wife was trying to tell me, stop trying to look ahead to what God wants to give you and understand that he's going to give it to you, but you got to learn while you're doing all this. You're a coach. Spend your time being a coach. And this is the crazy story about me becoming a head coach at Robert Morris University. I got hired December 19th, 2017 at Robert Morris University. January 12th, 2018, I turned 50 years old.
Wow. It is amazing how God does that, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Bernard, when you think of Robert Morris, what would you say was your biggest adjustment going from being a career assistant to your first head coaching opportunity?
When I first got the head coaching job, Ken, I reached out to Jimmy Johnson, Butch Davis, Dave Wanstead, Randy Shannon, and I spoke with Mike Tomlin. And all of them gave me advice of what I need to do. But the two things that stick out to me more than anything else is Coach Davis told me, and also Dennis Erickson, Coach Davis told me, get advice from people who are not football coaches.
Mm.
Get advice from leaders who are not football coaches. And Mike Tomlin said, everything you wanted to do along the way as you becoming a head coach, do it and stick with it 100%. So my mission statement, and Ken, like I told you, you helped me with this mission statement. My mission statement, because when I was at Liberty, I couldn't put words to it like I wanted to, but your dad put the words to it because he talked about our guys growing spiritually, socially, and what was the other one, Ken?
Physically and emotionally.
Emotion. And so what I put that to was, I want to create an environment on and off the football field to continue what families have done and help these guys become better men, better husbands, and better fathers. And that's what drives me as a coach. So even when I became a head coach, that's been my mission statement. That's been my drive. So I may do things a little different. You know, like one of the things I'll do, if a young man is just not doing well on the football field, he's just not a good football player. As long as he's doing what he's supposed to do, Austin, I'm going to let that young man graduate from college because I made that promise. I made that promise to him, and I made that promise to his family because he's more important than anything else. Now, if you're being a turd and you're getting in trouble, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, we're going to have a conversation about you leaving or you changing your environment more than anything else. But as long as you're a good person and doing the things, it's our job as coaches to use football as a tool. This is what your dad talks about all the time, to use football as a tool to become a better man, a better husband, and a better father. Because you know and I know, football teaches us determination, dedication, competitiveness, discipline, and all those things are needed in what? In life. So
absolutely,
that's what guys understand. So football is a tool that I use to create that environment, so they can become better men, better husbands, and better fathers. So when I became a head coach, Ken, my mission statement has helped me stick to that more than anything else.
Let's jump to go ahead, Austin. I was going to get to the marriage. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to jump to your sweetie.
My rock.
Tell us how you met Tammy. Maybe a proposal story if there's a fun one to hear, and then what makes her special, Bernard?
The great thing about my wife, and I'll give you a crazy story, Ken. When I was in the car business, I sold my wife a car. That's how we met.
Okay.
When I was in the car business, I sold her a car. She came in, and my salesman, I was a sales manager, my salesman and another salesman had lied to her about the price of a car. And I told her, I said, well, after you realize that the other person lied and I'm not, don't have so much pride that you don't come back and buy this car. So she had to come back and buy the car. So I ran into her later on at a nightclub that weekend. I exchanged her phone number, and she says she told me she was going out of town. I didn't remember her saying that. So I was just calling her. I thought she was avoiding my phone call, Austin. And so I just took her phone number off the computer because I had it. It was illegal, but I did it anyway. And so I started calling at work, and I started calling her. But she was gone for a week. And so she finally got back. She said she looked at her call ID. She was like, why is this guy calling me? I told her I was going out of town. So that's how we met. That's the crazy story about how we met. The thing about my wife, like I said, she's my rock. And the crazy story about her is I always said this. God forbid, this is how I knew I was in love with my wife. God forbid something happened to her and she lost use of her legs for the rest of her life. I would clean her butt for her for the rest of her life. I know that's how much I love her. And I can't say that about everybody. And I know she'd do the same for me. That's why I know that she's the one for me. And that's how we met. And like I said, she's my rock. And she's been there for me. Even when I get fired, she's been the one I've cried on her shoulder. She's like, I got it. Don't worry about it. She's a flight attendant. And she gets to work and she picks up trips. And that's why I tell you it was a crazy story. I was telling you it was free because she had a trip. She picked up another trip. She let that trip go. So that's why I was telling you I was free at one. But it was like, but that's how she does it. She's been doing it for years. But no, I love her. I love her dearly. That's how we met. She's been my rock. She's been there for me. I knew she was the one, like I said, when the first time I got fired at a job at FIU. And she was like, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of this until you get hired again. She said, I know you're still under contract. She said, take some time, relax a little bit, and we'll make this thing work. And that's why I know she's the one.
It's awesome.
Great story.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to jump to the part we call legacy, Bernard, as we wind down our time together. And when someone encounters Bernard Clark Jr., two things. What do you want them to experience, and how would you want to be remembered?
I want them to see the light of Christ. That's the first thing. I want them. I want us to be seen as different, and in a good way. Like I said, in a Christ-filled way. Like my players. That's why I don't like using profanity with my players. When they see me on the field as a coach who's not using profanity, who's coaching them in a different way, I want them to say, "Man, what? Why doesn't Coach use profanity? Why doesn't Coach? Why does he do this? Why is he always talking about my future? Why is it?" I want them to see Christ in me as much as they possibly can. So that's probably the first thing, Ken. What is the second question you asked? I'm sorry.
How would you want to be remembered after someone spends time with you?
As a person who's extremely considerate.
Mm.
I just want to be a very considerate person. I believe in, and my wife is probably, again, my rock has probably taught me this morning. My wife does not like rude people. They drive her out of her mind. And so with me, I don't like inconsiderate people. I don't like when people don't think about others, because I truly believe, Ken Austin, that we are born selfish. We don't care about anybody else but ourselves. We have to learn to be considerate. We have to learn to love others. And I think all that comes through Christ. All that because of what he did for us on the cross, those things are so important. And that's how I look at it. Because when you look at things, the book you told me to read a long time ago, Ken, I thought about that book, I don't know how many, The Shack. And that book is absolutely so powerful, because when you think about all the things, the bad things that people do in the world, it doesn't matter. Still God's children. We are still God's, and that's how he sees us. And that's why it's so weird when I look at a guy like Jeffrey Dahmer, he looks at him like, that's my son.
That's right.
That's my son. I mean, ain't nothing I can do about it. I mean, I try to teach him the right way. I try to raise him in the right way, but that's how he is. So why should I look at people any different? So I try to be as considerate as I possibly can. That's what I want to be known for, somebody that's extremely considerate, a coach who cared, a coach who believed in his young men and wanted to see them become better men, better husbands, and better fathers.
Well said. Well said.
We, what are 5 words, and it can be more than 5 words, but 5 words that describe your spiritual journey?
Whew. First one's tough.
Yeah.
First one's tough. Second one is discipline. Third one would be considerate. Fourth one, which is hard at times, is faithful. And the last one is inconsistent. It's just, I mean, the thing about it, you gotta be on that spiritual journey and understand you're gonna have ups and downs. You guys had a gentleman on here. I cannot remember his name. I apologize, Ken. He was the young man that played for you at Liberty. That's a stockbroker now.
Yeah, Matt Sherwood.
When Matt talked about, when he said what he said, Ken, this is exactly what I tell people now, and it comes from Matt. People say, how are you doing? I am enjoying the process.
Yes.
Because the process is going to be good. The process is going to be bad, but it doesn't matter. Enjoy it.
Right.
This is the ride that God has you on. There's no sense you getting upset about it. Just roll with it. I try to have bad moments, not bad days. And I don't.
Well said.
I don't want those bad moments to turn into bad days. So one of those things, I'm just enjoying the process. Because Ken, the one thing about being a head coach, when you want the big chair, you got that big chair. I'm telling you right now, because everything that comes to that big chair, and half the stuff that comes to the big chair has nothing to do with football. It has nothing to do with football. So when I go to work and I'm talking to my coaches about, hey, we can't do this, we can't do that, and they're looking at me like, Coach, I said, guys, enjoy the process. That's all you can do. We can sit here and get as mad as the administration as we want. It's not going to change. So don't worry about things you can't change. Only worry about the things that you can. And that's what it boils down to. And so I'm enjoying the process, Ken. It's extremely important to me, Austin, to enjoy the process.
That's awesome. What's maybe the most significant moment in your spiritual journey?
The most significant moment is understanding that don't let your dream become a distraction. Understanding that more than anything else. But even more important than that, don't ever let your position become more important than your purpose.
Mm.
My
Wow.
purpose for being a coach has nothing to do with the position I'm in. My purpose
Mm.
for being a coach is to helping young men change their lives. The position I'm
Yeah.
in has nothing to do with that. My position should never be more important than my purpose. When I start looking down on people, that's when it becomes a problem. I told your dad this story years ago. I actually was one of my Bible study things, and one thing I always sticks with me also, no matter what, because it goes back to when I was at Domino's selling those pizzas, and only one person recognized me. If I quit my job tomorrow, and the garbage man quit his job, people in my neighborhood would miss the garbage man long before they miss me. So
Mm.
understand where you are in your position and understand your purpose. My purpose is bigger than my position. Football is a microcosm of what the world is actually about. I
Yeah.
literally get to do what I love. Not a lot of people get to do this. I tell people this all the time. And it sounds crazy to me when I say it sometimes because we used to go, my wife and I used to go on vacation and people would find out I'm a football coach and want to take a picture. I'm like, wait, take a picture with me. And my wife would be like, baby, you don't understand. And she made me understand. I am one of 134 head football coaches in FCS football. One
Yeah.
of 134. So it humbles me beyond belief to think that way and understand my purpose is extremely big because I'm only one of 134. So my purpose has to be more important than my position.
You
Awesome.
know, Bernard, one of the things that I always challenge recruits when they would come into my office over the last 10 years was I said, when you talk to the assistant coaches, I said, I really believe this is one of the most important things a recruit needs to do. They need to ask the question, how will you and this program make me better? So I know that you recently wrote a book
Mm-hmm.
called Ascension, a
Mm-hmm.
coach's guide to becoming. And I want to let you talk about that and your legacy of if someone comes to play for you and the Robert Morris program, how will you make them better, Bernard?
I don't know if I'll make them better as a football player, Ken. I think that's totally up to them, to be totally honest with you. If they're willing to take the teaching of myself and our coaches, I think I can make them better as a football player. But I'm hoping I can make them better as a person. I'm
Mm.
hoping that when they come in here, we put them in the right position so they'll listen and pay attention to the things around them, not so much in seeing, but also listening, like I said, and understanding as they're doing, because a lot of guys don't understand. They don't ask the right questions they need to ask. I want to make sure they're asking the right questions to become a better man, a better husband, and a better father, because those things are extremely important to me. But it comes more from what they're seeing, what they're listening to, and how we're acting as coaches. And again, I always tell the coaches, and again, I'm not as strict as you can. I'll let them use profanity to a certain point. If it gets to where it's demeaning, I'm gonna have a serious conversation with that coach. And I fired coaches because it has gotten demeaning. Because I want these guys to understand we're about uplifting them and helping them become better men, better husbands, better fathers. So those things are extremely important to me. So that's probably the biggest way that I could show them more than anything else. And what made me write the book is again goes back to Liberty University. Sitting at Liberty, listening to your mission statement, seeing players who were virgins that I had never experienced that before around football in my life. In that situation, being at that school, and I said I wouldn't name the school, but obviously I just named the school. So it's one of those situations that made me want to write that book because as I'm sitting there, and at the time, I wasn't married yet, so I was practicing abstinence. And the reason I was practicing abstinence because it made me understand that I wasn't just a woman just wasn't giving herself to me. I was also giving myself to her. And I want a
Mm.
young man to understand that their body is a precious gift from God, just like a young woman's body is. And it's also a temple of God. And made me want to reach out to young men and help them understand that and how they can come to love themselves and believe in themselves and grow with themselves. And just because a young woman offers you her body does not mean that you have to give it to her. And so those are the things that are extremely important to me.
Bernard, if someone's looking to buy your book, where can they get it?
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon. If you look up Bernard Clark Jr., it'll come right up. And it's called Ascension, a coach's guide to becoming a better man, husband, and father. Something near and dear to my heart. Probably the toughest thing about writing it, Ken, was all my big events in my life When I signed with the University of Miami, when I signed with the Cincinnati Bengals, when I got my first coaching job, when I got my first head coaching job, when I wrote the book and it came out, my dad wasn't alive. So that was the first.
Mm.
That was the first time with not having him and my mom there to celebrate something special and big in my life. But so yeah.
Well, as we close, Bernard, we call this segment "Final Words," and we're going to give you a chance to just share any final thoughts you want to share, and then Austin will say a few things, and I'll close us.
The only thing I want to share is I want to just thank you and Austin for allowing me this platform to do this. I love talking about my faith more than anything else. I love talking about my relationship with Christ, and you don't get to do that a lot in our profession outside of Liberty University. It's more about, people don't want to see you do that. The great thing about Robert Morris University, it being a private university, I am able to pray without people having issues with it. I do pray with the team before every game that we have. I do the chapel service before every game that we have. So they allow me to do that. And so it is allowing me to not only show young men my football side, but also to show them my spiritual side and my relationship that I have with Christ. So that's extremely important to me. So I want to thank you guys for allowing me to do this and letting people know that if your son comes to Robert Morris University, I'm going to talk about Christ. I'm going to definitely talk about Christ.
Awesome. Well, I mean, for me, just as far as my final words, I mean, obviously, like we've talked before. It's I was a little kid when I met you, and sitting here looking up to people who were on my dad's staff, and just obviously you were a great player, a great coach, and I'm just grateful for you taking the time to come share your story and just sharing your wisdom and just showing what God's been doing in your life. And I just know that there's going to be a lot of people out there that sit and listen and be impacted by uh, stuff that your father has said, or stuff that you've gone through, and just your journey. And I'm just so thankful for you taking this time to share with us, Coach.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate it.
Bernard, as you can imagine, it's special for me to be able to do this with my son. And as I've listened to you talk today and to share your heart, I know this: your father would be very proud of you, Bernard,
Thank you.
and the man that you are today as a football coach, as a man, as a husband, and just to see how much you love your parents. Being a parent and a grandparent myself, that just speaks volumes. And I think of the people that sometimes may meet you and they know your background. They could be intimidated by, well, this guy was a pro player. He played at Miami. He's a head coach. And I just want to, encourage our listeners. The thing I love when someone mentions the name Bernard Clark Jr. to me is I love your heart. As my wife and I, Pauline, who you know well, we've talked many times, you have a wonderful heart that loves people, that cares about those young men that you coach. And that's what I'll always will respect. And it was a blessing that I had to be able to hire you and had 4 great years with you. So we just want to thank you for your story. It's one that is unique to you and will be something that Papa delivers to many people over the days to come. So we thank you for allowing us to share your story with our listeners at Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time.
Appreciate it. I'm not sure what happened, Ken. Something's saying reconnecting. I don't know what's going on. That Pauline? Hey, how you doing? Yeah, yeah, good. I appreciate you guys, man. Thanks a lot, man. You know what? The crazy thing again, it goes back to what. Can you hear me, Austin? Okay. The crazy thing is what I told you before. When you start dealing with stuff, we don't have money. We don't have funding. It's like we're back in Liberty. We don't have funding for a summer school. So I'm doing what your dad had to do with our guys, and so our guys are getting jobs and trying to see if they can find a place around campus, to work out. So what your dad prepared me for years ago, it doesn't bother me now because we didn't have it back then. So that's the positive thing about it. So our guys are here working out. Absolutely. So our guys are here working out. They got jobs. They're doing a good job. We don't have the whole team here, but we have enough of them here, and they're working hard. Are you okay? Are you coaching? Are you coaching high school, Austin? Trust me, I can understand. I got you. Ken, can you still see me?